Hello and welcome back to another episode here on Hacks and Hobbies. And today it's going to be a solo episode. I know I've been thinking about this a lot, you probably don't know. And I've been talking about it to other friends that, hey, I want to do solo episodes. And it's been so long because I've been so busy just building my mindset, building my personality, building my brand, building systems, building. And I know 500 is a big number. It's half of 1,000. It simply boggles and blows my mind on what I've been able to achieve in the past 4 to 5 years. I know. It's been crazy. I've been continuing to grow, continuing to put in the work. And yes, this work can be very boring. This work can be very taxing. But you really have to do it if you want any growth. Now, thinking about anything is just that. We can have 1,000 ideas. That's why they call them ideas are a dime a dozen. Everybody has ideas. But what it all comes down to is how you execute that idea, how you put in motion, how you get it off the ground. And it's been a really tough one, something that I thought about for a very long time. In fact, I thought about launching my podcast for 8 years. Wait, 6 years. Because in 2012, I had a podcast, a small podcast. We managed to put 4 episodes together. You can still go listen to the stuff that we were talking about back in 2012. And yes, I've talked about this many times. If you've been a listener on the podcast, you probably heard me talk about this. But in 2012, my cousin, my brother-in-law, and we called a podcast called Still Brewing It. Now, that was the final name. We came up with some other ridiculous names for it, but three brown guys was one of them. But Still Brewing It made a lot of sense because we would always brew ideas, come up with ideas, and be like, hey, this is so cool. So as we kept brewing it, we couldn't continue after 4 episodes because there was a lot of work involved. And we didn't have software like Zoom. We didn't have software like VoIP back then. Or maybe but just we didn't spend enough time into figuring out how we could do it. Fast forward 2018. Gary V told me, document your journey, bro. That's the only way you're going to make any head. That's the only way how you're going to move forward. That is the only way you're going to see a result. You're going to see what works. You're going to see what doesn't. So I started documenting my journey. I was like, what am I going to document? And it just so happened that I had recently finished a beekeeping course. Yes, there's a lot of story behind it. You probably heard me talk about that story as well. But I jumped into beekeeping because I knew my son had seasonal allergies. And the doctor we saw in 2012 mentioned, hey, local honey is really good for these seasonal allergies. Now, he has more than just seasonal allergies. And he recently was cured of egg allergy, which is a huge awesomeness. He can have cake, he can have donuts, he can have cookies that have eggs in it. It's really cool. So, beekeeping came from there. And for years and years, I was like, okay, how do I get into beekeeping? My friend, Benton McKibben, asked me to borrow my GoPro. He's like, hey, can I borrow your GoPro? And I want to hook it up on my head. And as I get these bees into my garden, into my farm, they're going to help pollinate. I was like, wait, how are you getting bees? Like, oh, I just rent them. Like, really? Interesting. I saw that video. I was like, wow, this is really cool. Fast forward. Now, I'm a very avid and prolific Kickstarter backer. I've backed over 290 Kickstarter projects and probably another 10, 15 other projects on other platforms. So I love supporting other creators, other inventors, because do you know how much time it takes to create anything at all? And having movement in one way or another is just a huge way that you're putting stuff out there. So anyways, I discovered this Kickstarter project called Flowhive. I was like, whoa, this is cool. And it's like, hey, you don't have to mess with the bees. You just stick your bottle jar in the back of the hive and just turn this knob and you got honey coming out. I was like, whoa, this is fascinating. So this is number 2 thing, right? So got introduced to bees. You can rent bees out. Got introduced to how easy it is to extract honey. And I was like, okay, things are stacking up. And then back about 2017, we finally moved in a home where we had a huge backyard. I was like, oh my God. 3 things stacking and pointing in the direction of going to become a beekeeper. All right, so number 1, the doctor says it. Number 2, actually 4 things. So the doctor saying it starts the thought process. That's the inception, right? So the number 1 thing that triggered was, oh, you can rent bees and it's so easily accessible. Number 2, Kickstarter campaign. Number 3, now I actually have place to store these bees. I was fascinated. I started consuming all sorts of content on YouTube, at least 6 months of consuming content on how bees work and people taking bees out of homes. Then finally I run into this video and this gentleman's like, hey, if you really want to get into it, you're going to go find local beekeepers to hang out with. I'm like, all right, this is cool. So I jumped in, went to the local beekeeper, and they're like, hey, we're putting a class together in January where we'll walk you through what it takes to become a beekeeper. And I'm like, oh my God, I am in. Hook me up. So that was 2017, end of 2017. And then 2018 is when I started the class. I'm done with the class in February, end of February. And I'm in this place where I know exactly what I need to do. I'm like, dude, this is cool. And as I'm finishing listening and reading the book, Crushing It by Gary Vaynerchuk, and him saying, just document the journey, I knew exactly what to document. Number 1, I had wanted to start a podcast. Number 2, I had just finished this documenting the journey. Number 3, I discovered the app Anchor.fm that enables you to record a podcast on your smartphone. I mean, how easy can you do it? Again, 3 points, stack them back and forth. And the 4th thing was my coworker was like, dude, you've got so many hobbies. How are you going to add another one? I'm like, no, I just have to do this. And it's like, how about you talk about Queen Bee on the first episode of your podcast? I was like, oh my God, that is so apt. And it's like, not just a queen bee that resides in your hive, but also queen bee as Beyonce. I'm like, Beyonce's queen bee? Obviously, I am a bit out of touch from pop culture. But yeah, that was the beginning of the podcast. I jumped in a car, didn't know what it was going to be called. I was like, Talks with Super Junaid, just randomly. I was like, I don't care what the name for this podcast is going to be, but I know it's going to be about beekeeping. It's going to be my way of learning and documenting my journey about how it really comes together. So the first year, I just talk about these ideas, talk about beekeeping, talk about the relevance of how podcasting becoming, and of course, joining groups like the Anchor community group on Facebook. Then later they transitioned to Slack. But I connected with a lot of other people that were always encouraging, asking questions like, oh my God, how do I get my downloads up? I don't really care about that because I just wanted to have that personal growth, have that accountability for myself of me getting these concepts and ideas out of my head. So that first year, I'm just talking to myself in my car on a headset connected to an iPad using the Anchor FM app. Nobody could tell that I was in a car because the quality of this microphone was really, really good. As I spoke and as I talked, I started to question and I said, hey, I wonder if there are other people crazy like myself who want to talk to themselves. Maybe they'll talk to me. And this is when I started to invite people like my friends and people that I met on places like Kickstarter and places like the Facebook group if they would be a guest on my podcast. And lo and behold, they said yes. Now I had to figure this out and find a way how to record these episodes. And in the beginning was kind of confusing, but we were living in 2018. Zoom was a thing. And of course, we've had Zoom conversations before, and it was something that was just coming out. So I was like, hey, I'll integrate Zoom and I'll invite people and I'll just do a 40-minute episode. And because the free account limits you to 40 minutes. Actually, no. Free account limits you 40 minutes if it's more than 3 people or more than 2 people. But if it's 2 people, there's no limit. So I was like, all right, perfect. I started inviting people, started talking to them and asking questions on their journeys, what enabled them to be where they are and how they did it. Fast forward 1 year of talking to myself. And yes, I was not consistent. I didn't record consistently. I didn't post consistently. But what I did do is I continued to grow. I continued to level up my mindset. Continued to level up my outlook on life. And I continued to listening to Bugs and other podcasts because that enabled me to just grow, just continue to grow. And that's what human beings are. We want to continue to grow no matter what. We are growing, if you like it or not. We're constantly growing. In fact, our cells in our bodies are brand new every 7 weeks. Yeah. Imagine that. You're a brand new person every 7 weeks. You're a brand new person. So we are changing whether you like it or not. These deep conversations that I had with people on the podcast, learning their stories, taught me something very valuable. There's a lot more to people. There's more to people, and these are the stories. There's more to life. There's more to entrepreneurship, the friendships. And these conversations and interviews, they kept me going. Season 2, 3, and 4 all consisted of mostly interviews with some solo episodes here and there. And I still didn't know what I was going to do with these solo episodes. So in the solo episodes, I would say, hey, last week we got to talk to these guests, and this coming week we're gonna talk to these guests. So I would record these episodes based on what I was gonna publish the week before and the week after, and I knew those pretty easily. And as I continued to podcast, I started to build systems. I started to level up the behind the scenes of what it takes to produce a podcast. And yes, it is a ton of fun. It is a ton of hurt. There's a lot of suck. There's a lot of suck. And guess what? Those are the first three letters. The first three letters of the word success is SUC, suck. So you're going to go through suck before you get to success. And you probably heard me say that on the past few episodes as I wrapped up season 4. Wow. Season 4. I never knew that I was ever going to call anything that had related season with my name next to it. And lo and behold, 500 episodes has taught me so much. The struggles, the challenges I went through, they not only opened doors, but they also made me grateful and humble because people really do care. All they want to see is that, do you care? Because when we care and we show that we care, people who care start coming up. They start getting attracted to you. They start coming to you. Now, I'm so ever thankful to my amazing wife for supporting my dream of becoming a podcaster and getting this far. I mean, without her support, I could not have been able to do this. The time where I didn't have a job for 9 months, right? My wife supported me. I couldn't have done it without her. So a huge amount of gratefulness and thankfulness goes to my wife. She is my backbone. Without my backbone, we can't stand straight. So I am truly, truly grateful for her to give me this opportunity to go deep into what my passions are. So as a podcaster, right, there's life, and then there's life of curiosity. A lot of us just live life, or so I did before I became a podcaster. Now, there has been a ton of different growth areas that I've done, right? The one thing that really steered me in the right direction is jumping on that bike back in 2016. Now, my sister asked me, hey, I'm going to be biking the 5 boroughs in New York. Do you want to join? And I was like, yes, please, let's do it. This was May of 2016. I rented a bike. I immediately fell in love with how light this bike was. So then I had to have me a bike. So end of 2016, I got me a nice bike. My wife introduced me. Again, my wife, she's everywhere because she is my life. Right? My wife is my life. She introduced me to her friend, and her friend was like, hey, my husband's in this biking group. You want to join him? I'm like, yes, please, let's do this. And 2017 was a totally different year. I spent so much time with myself and my thoughts on my bicycle, riding 1,500 miles solo. Well, most of them were solo. Others were with the group. I'm either trailing them or pulling them. But again, it was a lot of self-work you have to do to really get into this mindset of you can do anything you want. So 2017 was a precursor to the podcast. I put in a lot of work into myself, into my mindset, into my body to be able to say I can do this podcast by myself. Wow, holy smokes. And that's the life of purpose. Right? So the life of curiosity, can I do it? Yes, I can. Then the life of purpose, okay, I need to do this. And then there's life of servitude. What do I mean by that? When you're inviting guests to your podcast, you are serving an audience. You are serving your guests. You're providing them a place to record their message. And it's available for everyone to hear. Right? So that's the life of servitude. And it continues because I have helped countless people with their sites, with UX design, with, I know these are really high level terms, but with their studios, with their podcasts, with their branding, like so many people, because I love to absolutely help. Another reason why 2018 was a turning point for me is because I turned 42 that year. And 42, like you all know, is the ultimate answer to the questions of the universe. Now, this is if you have not seen the movie Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy or read the book, that's one of the references I love to go back to. That was the moment when I knew it was time to start something I had been wanting, and that's where the podcast started. To continue moving forward, and so many people that I met through podcasting, so many people that I had these conversations enabled me to grow and continue to grow, and it just hasn't been the same since then. Episode 500. Yep, it's a big number. It's a huge milestone. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of hurt, a lot of anxiousness. It's someone. This is something that no one can take away from me. Even if these episodes were to disappear from the internet catalog, what cannot be taken from me is the experience, the relationships, and the partnerships, and the lives that I've changed during this journey. Now, if you're thinking of starting a podcast, I'd say grab your phone, download the Anchor.fm app, and start recording. Anything that you're doing, just start. Now, COVID hit. My friend, my cousin was like, hey, I'm going to be setting up a garden. I've got so many different plants over here. I was like, oh, I want to start a garden too. My wife told me, hey, let's start a garden. 3 weeks later, my cousin's telling me, oh my God, I got lettuce growing. I got some tomatoes. I'm like, dude, what did you do? And he's like, I just got started. And I was spending so much time researching and contemplating and what to do. I was like, oh my God, you just got to get started. You just have to. Because otherwise, you're going to live in limbo. You're going to be stuck in limbo, thinking about what to do. So if you're thinking of starting a podcast, if you're thinking of starting a group, if you're thinking of cycling, running, exercising, eating healthy, being kind to others, just get started. Start being kind to yourself. Start by just putting on your shoes. Start with just the smallest action that'll change your body movement, and you will start to see results. But how do I monetize my podcast, Junaid? Yeah, well, podcasting is a long game. Unless you are an expert and you're helping somebody solve a problem on your podcast, you can certainly charge them to be a guest on your podcast because you're solving a problem that they have. And they're going to come to you because you're the expert. So, yes, you can monetize that way. And depending on the topic of your conversation, you can monetize by offering services. You can monetize by bringing on sponsorships. There's a ton of businesses around you. There's a ton of people around you that can use the marketing that comes from publishing content on a podcast. This is so much fun. I get to just talk to myself looking at my screen. And luckily for me, I had written a post a few days ago. So I've got some pointers to take me to the direction. But I'm coming to the end of that post. So don't worry. There's still a lot more to go. So how do you monetize? That's one of the ways. You can convert those posts, those blog posts. You can convert those episodes into books. Those books can then go onto a podcast. Those books can then go to Amazon. By the way, I'm not editing any of this because I just want you to listen to the real me and what it really goes into creating a podcast. You might want to take out all the ums and ahs in post-production. But you know what's really good? If you don't even say them to start when you start recording. And that's another skill that you learn. When you really put the time into it. Yes, I'm going to have long pauses in here, and I've had some only because I'm comfortable with these pauses. You can take these mini pauses as mini meditations. All right. I'm not going to fill in the gap because I really want you to understand that this is only possible because I put my time into it. Because I had encouragement. But before the encouragement, it's all about me putting the time and energy into creating this episode. Now, along the way, I've done a lot of amazing things. And those amazing things are something I'm really proud of. So what have I done? Okay. I sponsored my cycling team. I sponsored other events. I've spoken at events like Podfest. I was invited to be a guest on a ton of shows. And all of this just happened to be something that helped me grow along the way. You're going to grow no matter what. So let's just put that aside and think about what you want to do. The one thing that I ask you, my good friend Chris Williams always says, do the work and get the result. And for that, you have to get started. Yes, I'm probably going all over the place. But I just want you to know this is fun. This is a lot of fun because I get to talk to you. I get to share with you my experience. And I want to thank all the people that came and be guests on my podcast. They enabled me to be where I am today. Without the guests, I would not have conversations. Like my good friend Kirk Nugent talks about how to let the clients come to you. My good friend Hala Taha, how to get growth and monetization of podcasts. She is an amazing podcaster. My good friend Christine McAllister, teaching people how to monetize through guest podcasting and bring people to your business. My amazing friend Heather Parody, who I got to talk to a couple of times on the podcast, is a brilliant human being. Check out episode 456 and 314. Or is it 413? I can't remember. I'm sorry. Just have to look it up on the hacksandhobbies.com website. My friend Adrian Moreno, how to become aware of the unconscious beliefs and program yourself for success. Look at that. Such an amazing conversations over the years. My good friend Brian Shulman, Vernon Brown, amazing human being. Brian Shulman and I talk almost every other day because we know what it takes to build what we have. It's been an absolutely fabulous journey. Now, a podcast episode that I recorded with Susan and Paul Cadillac, how you can turn an ordinary house into a haven that you love coming to. And yes, we had to do that for our home because we didn't like how dark it was. We made it a haven for ourselves. Now, one thing my wife wants to do is own a custom home. And I was like, let's put a date to it. And it just so happened we put a date. I'm like, okay, how about May 17, 2027, we will be living in a custom home that we designed. And it just so happened I spoke with Susan and Paul Cadillac of Cadillac Homes, who help you build custom homes. It was like the universe answers. The universe gives you what you ask of it. So many amazing journeys. So many amazing conversations. I cannot list all the 300 plus interviews that I've had, but these people made a massive impact on my life. Sean Malone, oh my God, this guy is a beast, an amazing human being. Helped me so many different ways. It's been absolutely amazing. My good friend Deb Rosman, how to embrace the grieving process in order to heal. Yeah, there's so much in here. I'm just going to go through some of these entries and talk about these powerful human beings. Jessica Edwards, how to have a streamlined process to better serve customers. She's got an amazing story. She is a hard worker. She's going after it day after day. It's just amazing. I got to talk with Chris Williams, an amazing human being. I've been in his friend circle for the better part of the pandemic, and I could not want any better group of people to hang out with. It's absolutely amazing. Got to meet my good friend Eden Liu, how to communicate and connect with people in meaningful ways. She's created some really amazing journeys. Now, the one person that I'm going to talk about next, because I want to talk about this topic, and I probably will talk about this topic as I go forward in season 5, because it's something that's opened my mind in ways that I could not have imagined. Now, this was January of 2021, and I'm on a Clubhouse room, and Danielle Laura is talking about human design. I'm like, ooh, I want to know what this is. She's like, let me message you, and I'll pull one up for you. I'm like, all right, do it. So she pulls up my human design chart. She records this video and reads through what it is, who I am. And as she's reading this recording, I'm like, oh my God, how does she know me without even meeting me? And it just blew my mind. So Danielle Laura, she talks in episode 424, how to master your mission, amplify impact, and experience deep connection and fulfillment. And that's exactly what I experienced, that deep connection with her, because she, like myself, is also a projector. And you'll hear these terms throughout the rest of the episode: projector, manifester, generators, manifesting generators, emotional generators or emotional projectors, as well as reflectors. So human design is an energetic type. It's a chart that you pull based on 5 key factors: the date of your birth, the place of your birth, and the time of your birth. I guess 3 key factors. The 5 is, month, day, year, time, and place. So it's 5 key factors. They tell you who you are. The moment you stepped into this world, or you popped into this world, you are imprinted by this energy that's around you. And it's really fascinating. And apparently there's a big shift coming in 2027. But it's really powerful when you figure out what your energetic type is, and read through some of the things that they talk about. It really shows and defines who you are. Not defines, but tells you who you are. It's like the manual that you're supposed to get when you buy any gear. I mean, we're gear junkies here. Recently got the tour box, and it's got, an instruction manual. How to use this gear, how to drive this car, how to use a water bottle, right? These things are pretty amazing. So human design chart talks about how you operate, how you work, how you respond to people, what's your energetic type. There's a lot of things in there which really just blew my mind. So check out Jovian Archive for more information. I'm going to talk more about it later on in this season, but it really opened my mind and said, oh, this is really fascinating. And what it simply means is that you are a certain way, and if you're not in alignment, or if you're not doing the things that you're supposed to do, not supposed to, I keep saying supposed, but when you don't do the things that you're supposed to do, as I'm going to say, then you're not feeling yourself. For example, if you don't drive your car properly, it's gonna crash, or there's bad things gonna happen when it doesn't go the right way. So that's human design in a nutshell. Just to give a little detail on the different types. So 4 different types. 1% of the population are reflectors. Just 1%, very little. The next one is manifestors. There's about 10% of the human population that are manifestors. The next one is projectors. Only 20% of the human population are projectors. And then the rest are generators. And they could be manifesting generators or just generators, emotional generators. 69 to 70% of these are generators. And this is the life force. This is the life energy, because they generate energy. They don't depend on any outside intervention. Not to say that manifestors and projectors need any outside intervention. There's so much to it that I can't go on. Anyways, it's been a lot of good stuff coming down the pike. So I'll talk about a couple more people that I really enjoyed having conversations with. Episode 420, Dan Bennett, how to look and sound great in camera through coursework and private community membership. He's got a really amazing coursework and a private community where he helps people on how to look good on camera and be comfortable. Like his main focus is telling stories, and it's been really cool. Now you might be wondering, where do I find these guests? Yeah, that's a really awesome question. And one of the best places that I've found these guests is in communities where I hang out with. For example, the SBI Pro community, the Amazon live streamers community, the Ecamm live streamers community, right? Live streaming communities, people that I meet in person. For example, meeting Chris Stone on his show, Dealcasters, through another friend, and he's one of my dearest friends. He talks on my podcast on episode 412 on how to start a podcast and live stream like a pro. Like some amazing conversations. All right. So, what have you learned? I'd love to hear from you. Simply go over to anchor.fm/hacks and hobbies and click on the message button, and you can leave me a 60-second voice note. And I'm looking forward to these notes because I want to integrate them. I want to include these notes in my upcoming episodes. And I've taken you on a long journey here. But thank you so much for sticking by me, for supporting me, for creating this space for me. In the next episode, you're going to listen to me and Mark Savant talk about podcasting and what it really takes for you to get into podcasting. There'll be a little bit of detail on a lot of self-work. There's a lot of self-work involved in everything and anything that you do. So again, thank you so much for spending this time with me. I know 43 minutes is a long time to just listen to one person talk, but I think I did pretty well. There's so much more I want to talk about, but I think we can leave that talk for other episodes to come. So excited for you. I cannot wait for you to start your podcast, start your journey, start the things that you love to do. So thank you so much for your time, your energy, your curiosity to listen to this episode. Until the next episode, see you guys and have a great day.